affiliated with Catholic University of America School of Architecture for, oh, good Lord, probably 10 years or so, doing student critiques. And then they built a facility management graduate program that a colleague and I co-taught for 2 years. And along those lines, as we grew as a company, recognized that we had kind of a unique approach in how we perform our services and informally educate ourselves, our colleagues, industry partners, and clients, and thought we'd invest in the opportunity to take all of those lessons learned and best practices approaches and build a training solution, and which I'm now leading. So the kind of the leadership and development arm of the training solution is one of a number of services that we offer. Our website shows we do acquisitions, facilities, finance, training, technology, and security. And so we have training platforms and modules for each one of those core services. So today you just get a small snapshot, little glimpse into what we do with our leadership development program. And this particular session, 5-lever approach, Steve has matured over the years, and we actually had an internal LDP alumni session yesterday. And as we're going through, there's about 30 of us participating in the call, which is really great considering that over the years we've gone, I think 55 folks gone through. So we still have a considerable amount, and quite a few attended, which was fantastic. But the feedback from them, not surprisingly, but I think, you know, Steve can attest to this really gets a lot of adrenaline going and facilitates a good conversation. So the last thing I'll say before Steve kicks us off is we certainly welcome interruptions along this presentation. We hope that we can make this as much of an exchange as possible, as opposed to just us speaking at a screen. So please feel free to interrupt, ask questions. We learn from you. We hope you learn a little bit from us. And again, after the presentation, you know, when you're thinking over the weekend, or when you take some of this information back to your respective companies, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We feel that working with industry partners helps make our company stronger. And again, thank you for your time. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Hey, real quick, can I ask a question to Scott and Steve?
Sure.
Obviously Marcon's a government contractor, but I know we've discussed this. The content, the 5 levers approach is not specific to government contracting. This could
not
be
at all. Not at all. Yes, thanks for that question, Darren. So as Scott mentioned, we've done this a number of times before. So, but full disclosure, I've done this at 2 national conferences, and both of them were great. And as Scott mentioned, we like to move around and things like that. So this is the first time we're doing this on Zoom. So it's real important that we get some feedback. We've got a couple of slides baked in for questions throughout the conversation. But again, feel free to reach out and ask us some questions and keep this going. Next slide, please, Scott. So yeah, these are our learning objectives today, and we really want you to get something tangible out of this. Strategy sounds like it's a real squishy subject, and it can be, but at Marcon, we have developed this tool, and it really is something that helps us in our decision-making process. And this is truly something, you know, with the worksheet.
Steve, you're still cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
That's all. Yeah. If you can stay wherever you are there, that works best.
Okay. So we've developed this tool, and we have baked it into our processes. And it's over the years, it's really helped us as we've refined our business planning and strategic process. So our hope is that, as you can see in these learning objectives, that you can have a better understanding of how we do this. And of course, the important one is the 4th one of being able to apply it. And because the application is what's important for us and truly helped us as a business. As Dario mentioned, we've had a great run of the past 12 years of consistent growth, revenue, and we've been profitable each of those 12 years. And so it's been an exciting run, but as you know, you've got to formalize things a little bit. And this is part of that formalization as we grow. So we're now up to about 235 folks right now. And as you know, things get more complicated. So this is helping us to keep it somewhat simple, but also enable everyone to get a good grasp of that. As Scott mentioned, in our internal leadership development program, this is one of the presentations that we get the most positive feedback from. So again, this is not having all of you in the room, but our intent is for you to get something out of this. So next slide, please. Scott, next slide.
I'm getting there.
There we go. Okay. So I think over the years you've seen, I mean, people spend their entire careers in academia and others on working strategy and understanding strategy and writing books about it. We're not going to do that in this hour. We're not going to make you experts on strategy, but our intent here is just to give a baseline understanding of what we're referring to and how we're viewing strategy and corporate strategy specifically. So you could see, you know, it's developed by the leadership. That's the folks here today watching this, reflecting the organization's mission and core values and the goals within the business strategies for achieving them, giving a clear direction to the organization. And I have the word shareholder in quotes because I know some of you might be with either a employee-owned company or not a publicly owned company or an NGO. And by shareholders, it's more of a stakeholder. And understand that it's got to provide value to your customers and your employees. And also customers could be in quotes as well, because often those customers are internal and your employees. And I lifted that from the web, from Investor Words. I thought it was helpful. Next slide, please. How are we doing with volume, Scott?
You're still in and out.
Oh boy.
I don't know if you have, you can try your headset again, but that might help level things out a little bit.
Okay.
So while you work on that, I'll take the next couple slides.
Okay, thank you.
Go back forward. No problem. So as Steve mentioned, core values, this is keystone to our company. These four that you see in front of you are the kind of the personification of Matt Dean, our president of the company. And what he does is, you know, from the minute you become a Marcon employee, when you're going through onboarding, we introduce everyone to what these core values are. And then over the course of that first day, as you're getting baptized by fire with everything going on in the company, you find that everything's connected back to this. It's pretty impressive, and it's surprising how fluid just these four core values just routinely find themselves in everything that we do. So what I'll do is this Vision 2025.
Scott, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right, press on.
Okay. Thanks. So Marcon founded in 2007, and over my time here with the company, we've focused on getting to 2020, and this is the latest and greatest. We actually have just rolled this out, our Marcon Solutions strategy map for 2025, just recently. So you guys are seeing it even sooner than some of the folks within our company. And what we try to do here is, while you don't explicitly see those core values, by digging into how we meet these goals to align with our vision, you'll find those core values find themselves in our growth goal, in our culture goal, our operational efficiency, innovation, and client delivery. So in terms of taking initiative, what we try to do is expand our innovation culture, align with our Marcon University. We have an internal leadership and development arm of the company that provides pretty extensive training, and also aligns with our corporate structure. So as we move up in the company, there's mandatory trainings that we do to make sure that we're trying to set our team up for best success. In terms of leading with humility, that expands and covers culture, clients, and colleagues, treating everybody with respect and recognizing, as I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion that, we know we don't have all the answers. We think we're pretty smart. We do some really solid work, but we recognize that in order to fill in those gaps, we need industry partners and our clients to help. Corporate integrity before personal gain. Here, that falls along lines with operational efficiency in terms of respecting that, for majority of the company, we're on a client site, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of them first, and then work in all of the other great things that we do within the company. And then again, respect for clients, partners, and our employees. We listen first and learn, and then take action. So appreciate you all taking a moment to take a look at this. So we went through, talked about the core values a little bit. Again, making sure that everything we do protects and aligns with those. Those drive our decisions, help us kind of recognize where's the right way to go, try to provide some consistency and continuity, and all of that obviously is to match the vision that we just went through with our strategy for 2025. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, before we press on, some pretty high-level concepts here. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Nothing in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Okay, let's press on, Scott. All right, so I'm sure some of you are thinking, why would we care? Why do we go through, everybody knows that firms develop these strategies and, they become shelfware, and it's a busy exercise, and, but Michael Porter, who is kind of the guru of strategy, he's been at Harvard for many years, he's written many books about it. I mean, in his opinion, success or failure is really an important element of strategy, and taking the time to focus on strategy and learning how to weave that into your decision making is worth the time and effort, and it's important. So we took that to heart as we went through over the last 5 or 6 years when we started developing this, and we're bought in that it's been helpful to us. Now, it's not to say it's carved in stone or it doesn't go through an annual cycle of some tweaking, but certainly very important to how we go about our long-term thinking, as well as our year-to-year development. Scott. Okay, so with that, we came up with what we call the 5-lever approach, and I want to be really clear here. 5 levers worked for Marcon. Your organization may need 3 levers, or you may need 7 levers. For us, we felt 5 was a good number, and it helped build those guidelines. And like when you go bowling and you got the bumpers, these have been kind of our bumpers as we're moving forward. So they've been our guidelines. And you saw the earlier slide where it showed one of our long-term goals is to be a $100 million corporation by 2025. We're not willing to do that at all costs. Our desire is to meet that very ambitious goal within these guidelines, and we're going to break each one down over the next couple slides of how we are using these as our guidelines, and then also how these levers are baked into our decision-making process as well. So the first one we're going to talk a little bit about is profit. Next slide, please, Scott. Again, lots of ways to talk about profit, lots of different definitions. We wanted to keep it simple, and even internally, we try and be very straightforward about it. So basically, your profit is what you can charge less your costs. So just a real quick example, we're in the services industry, government clients. So if we can charge our clients $105 and our costs are $100 when you're talking about overhead and G&A and all those good things and benefits, that a profit is going to be $5 if it's $100. So 105 revenue less the 100 in costs is going to get you $5 in profit, or roughly 5%. So that's kind of our mindset of how we view profit. And profit is an important lens for us. We love the industry we're in, we love the business, we love our clients, but if we're losing money, and that's problematic because there's lots of things we want to do for our employees and for that we would be able to do if we're losing money, as you know. Scott, next slide, please.
Steve, would you mind, before we move on, just talk a
Sure.
little bit about the worksheet?
Sure. Thanks for reminding me, Scott. So on your worksheet, you've got each of those 5 levers, and then there's a scale listed next to each one. So what we'd like you to do as we're going through there, first of all, when we've done this exercise in kind of an open group or different situations, we give you a specific budget for each of the 5 levers, and you can only maximize that. So, for example, on a 1 to 10 scale, we would say, hey, there's 5 levers, 5 times 10 is 50, but we're only going to give you 35 units. So you have to do that kind of trade-off. But little different approach to it today, doing this on Zoom. So what we want to do is, if in your mind, in your company, what's a reasonable profit margin? So depending on your business, you might have very thin margins, or you might have real hefty margins, depending. Some services and consulting and banking real high, other goods and so, for example, the grocery industry, real narrow profit. So as you're going through and you've got your worksheet available, write what you think, either maybe your corporate profit or what you think it is, or what you think is an optimal profit.
Thanks, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So labor rate, for us, labor rate is what we charge the client. And as Steve mentioned a minute ago when we were talking about profit, our labor rate would need to be $105 an hour to make sure that we are not losing money and that we are making money for the company. These rates can vary greatly depending on the service that you do or the industry that you're in. And the impact of going too high or too low on a labor rate really has an impact on profitability in the company, the salaries and benefits that we offer, how we're able to hire, whether or not you are able to bring in young and eager talent and kind of challenge them to take larger roles, or if you're trying to bring somebody in at a pretty significant salary and the labor rate doesn't necessarily match, then you find yourself in a bit of a hard struggle situation. So we, in terms of trade-offs, it's really key to how we align our overall success of the company. And much like Steve had mentioned in terms of the worksheet, what we would ask you to do now is imagine you're the CFO of the company or market manager of a portfolio. And on your worksheet, just jot down what you think would be an appropriate labor rate for your company. You don't have to overthink it too much, but just take a minute to do so. And as we continue, you'll start to see how all of these relate to one another.
Okay, next we're going to talk about brand. And well, there's again lots of definitions out there for brand, but what we've come up with is this whole inventory of those experiences or the impressions or perceptions that embodied values of the organization. So if you think of brands that really pop, there's a Google brand and there's the Amazon brand, and Coca-Cola from for generations, those types of brands, that has an impression on you and your perception of that organization, of their service or product. And in the services industry and certainly in the government, it's very difficult to differentiate yourself with a brand. So we've worked real hard, as I'm sure your organizations do as well. And the brand, it can impact a number of things. It can impact your recruiting. When you're looking to hire talent, they want to be proud of the brand that they're part of. So they, that brand is real important. When you're in the marketplace, when you're selling your products or services, that brand is real critical. And, you need to protect that brand as well as develop it. So as we go through this on the worksheet, there's a scale. I believe there's 10 ticks on that scale. Think about how important the brand is on a scale of 1 to 10 when you're going to market. And think of it in terms of an investment. So in your priorities on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you willing to invest in that brand?
Yeah, I'd also add, Steve, one of the things that we find ourselves now more than ever is the impact of social media, and making sure that whether you are trying to go after certain markets, trying to retain certain markets, or go after individuals, potential employees and clients, the investment in social media and marketing is certainly increasing. So I think as you try to balance the scales with all of these levers, keep that in mind. Okay, culture. For us in Marcon, culture is in its simplest terms that which we those actions and behaviors and values that we accept versus those that we don't. Our particular industry and the clients that we support are finding themselves in a bit of a transition. We have a lot of succession planning going on, especially with our government clients, as our aging population begins to retire and move on. And then there's also the challenges associated with the new workforce coming in and the things that they value, the beliefs that they value, and the ethics, the attitudes that they have. And in terms of culture, how we take a stand on something, especially in these day and ages, this day and age, with the global social and civil movements going on, making sure that we are putting our best foot forward and being very clear about who we are and what we stand for, really plays a role in terms of the balance with brand, recruiting and retention, as well as job place satisfaction.
Scott, I'll also add at Marcon, we shared our shared values prior to this, and we get a tremendous amount of feedback from candidates that we interview, from people that we hire, as people go through the various life cycle events at Marcon. We get a lot of feedback, very positive feedbacks about our culture. So we're protective of that culture, and yet I mentioned earlier that we're growing to $100 million, effectively doubling in size from the last couple of years. And we're very concerned, and we think a lot about our culture and what we need to do, and if indeed we can protect our culture going forward. So it's real important. It's surprising, it shouldn't be surprising, but it comes up in executive conversations all the time. So and we think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say before we move on to the next subject, because I think this is important, is as much as we protect and value the culture within the company, we also recognize the necessity to continue to evaluate what we do and how we act in terms of aligning our actions with the culture that we have. And over the past couple weeks and even just the past 24 hours, there's been a number of conversations in the company and groups and committees and organizations within the company that have started. We have a number of employee resource groups where we can celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's really it's making an impact, and we're really excited to see where it goes.
All right, benefits. We're going to have Dario do this slide for us. So as you know, it's a tough market out there from a hiring perspective, especially in a lane like government contracting, where you're doing very similar work. You've got similar clients. Certainly, culture is a differentiator, branding is a differentiator, but benefits is just a huge element of why people make a decision to join a firm. So, again, we've made a decision to be in the top quartile for benefits, and Dario can attest to that. So all these elements you see on the screen are parts of all that, and as you know, they're expensive. All the different insurances, the profit sharing plans, the training and professional development. We invest in wellness and all these various different benefits, but we think they're real important. And our question to you in the audience is, looking at your worksheet, on a scale of 1 to 10 from an investment perspective, where do you think your benefits should be in an optimal organization or in your organization, depending on how you're viewing the exercise today? So, all right, next slide, Scott.
Real quick, the other, I may have mentioned it, may have not. We also recognize that this shifts from time to time, and depending on the needs of the folks in the company. One of the factors that we have is we continually review and evaluate our benefits addressing the needs of our workforce. And at least in the 8 years I've been here, I've noticed that there has been shifts, which personally have been good, but taking into consideration kind of the expanding demographics in the company in terms of folks fresh out of school all the way through, near retirement.
Yeah, in fact, recently we started talking about elder care in addition to child care, because depending on where you are, that could be much more significant, or child care might not be significant at all, depending on if you have children and how old they are, whereas elder care certainly can be significant. So we're going to pause after going through these 5 levers here. Dario, anything in the chat?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but I did have a question regarding the culture, right? So I can attest to
Sure.
the culture that Marcon has developed. I think it's really been impressive. And Scott, your point about inclusion, I know that's obviously a timely issue right now, and I think you guys have given a lot of voice to your employees, which is really commendable. But do you think it's critical that a company defines their culture as a written statement, or does it happen organically? Obviously, you've got to kind of walk the walk and talk the talk, but sometimes those two things don't always reconcile it, meaning that something happens organically versus defined.
I mean, personally, Dario, our culture is very heavily defined by our CEO and president, Matt Dean, and it's reflected in those values, which have been documented for a number of years. So as far as answer your question, should they be documented? I believe so, but it's also certainly something, as Scott mentioned, that we talk about, and it's a living type of thing. Our culture, there's going to be some shifts over time, and there needs to be some shifts. So, but I am in favor of documenting the culture, and also making sure that people are comfortable in discussing it, and that it's really a value add. Scott?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think we're finding ourselves in a situation, and to use an extremely relevant example is with the death of George Floyd, and the response globally in terms of companies putting out statements. I think you could look at the variety of different viewpoints and statements from kind of the global brands like Ben & Jerry's, Coca-Cola, Nike, all of them, down to mom and pop organizations, making sure that your employees know that that they're working for a company that cares, that is interested in kind of continual growth and learning, and acknowledgement of shortcomings. I think all of those together, especially with those in kind of the younger age group, at least we're hearing from the folks in our company that if you're, find yourselves 30 to 35 and younger, in order to retain the best and the brightest, we find ourselves in situations where those employees are really this kind of aspect or lever is really critical to those decisions, whether or not they stay with any particular company.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That helps a lot.
One of the questions we did have, if anybody was willing to chime in, was, does anybody think that we have not addressed something? Is there a particular lever that your company has, or that some aspect that maybe we have not yet talked about that we should take a look at and maybe bring into our company?
Well, I can speak.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
From our industry, you have to weigh competition, the landscape.
Sure. Sure.
And you really can't talk about that without the economic state, of a business. So, I'm sure that's kind of in those levers somewhere, obviously, when you're talking about profits and things like that. But, those are some important factors in our industry.
Yeah, Dan, I think you make a great point. And I think, like I said, as you take this tool and you customize it for your organization, I think that's really a valuable point. Understanding, what's a big driver for you, and an understanding where you want to be as far as the competition, and what is how impactful is that going to be on your strategy? I think that's a great point. Thank you.
Now we are going to move into a case study where we look at a scenario that will ask everyone to kind of reflect and think about how we balance the scales on the levers that we discussed. But I'd ask for those of you that have been kind of tracking along and taking some notes with respect to the 5 levers, kind of see where your totals align. Are you all gravitating towards everything's important? It's really hard to balance the checkbook, or have you found that that some aspects are surprisingly weighted higher than you originally anticipated?
Yeah. So as we go through the case study, reference where your prioritization came, and use those levers as a lens as you evaluate the case study and decide. Scott, we ready to jump to that?
Absolutely.
So as you go through it, the goal here is to make a decision to bid or not to bid for this work. Okay, so think of yourselves in the service industry, and here's what we have. This is, by the way, it's fictional, but it certainly could be based on something real. High Flyer Inc.'s a large cannabis processing firm, and they're moving into the area, and they put out a request for proposal for a very significant design, construction, project management, O&M contracts, millions of dollars, very impactful to your organization. They've indicated that they want high quality, best value over lowest cost. So they've prioritized that they don't want the lowest bidder. So they had an industry day, and they mentioned that they had another experience, and it wasn't good, that there was a lot of turnover, that they didn't have good managers, communications was not good, and they are not going to tolerate that on this contract. So if you bid on it, you need to make sure that you're providing very, very high quality in all those areas. So they want this facility to really be a standout. They want it to be emblematic of their company and a source of pride. And this is not something that's going to be below the radar. It's going to get a lot of publicity, and the company, any contractor that's supporting it's going to get some publicity, and it's going to be significant. So if your organization does win the work and they do well, it's going to be a really good past performance, especially if you remain in this industry. So what we'd like you to do is, first of all, see if there's any questions about what our task here is, which is to come up with a bid or no bid decision. And what we're going to do is give you a few minutes to go through it. And then as we go around and you offer up your thoughts on this, we'd like to know which lever or levers was most influential in having you decide should you bid or not bid on this work. So any questions on the instructions or the actual case study itself?
I think that was a no.
Okay, so I've got 11:42 on my watch. Why don't we take, what do you think, Scott, 5 minutes?
Maybe 3. I don't think we need
Okay.
that long.
Okay, so we'll go to 11:45 on my watch, and then we'll start talking about it. And I'll let you think about it before I'll stop yakking for a minute. Okay, about another minute. And at the end of the minute, would you please go into the chat and put either a B for bid or an N for no bid? How about an NB? So B for bid, NB for no bid. And Dario, could you help tally it for us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Steve, do you just want the bid, no bid, not necessarily the 5 lever reason at this point?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the 5 levers. So just if you could give us the tally as they're coming in.
Well, for everybody, you can just go into the chat and say, you know, N or B, I guess would be fine. If you can take a moment to do that, we'll get some responses here.
Dario, how many folks are in the audience today?
We've got about 11 people on the call.
Great.
And some no bids are coming in. I know why I would put no bid.
Okay.
Most have been no bids. So,
Okay, interesting.
Yep, I think that's about it. No one's put a bid in on this one, even though there's billions of dollars on the table.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit of background. We've used the same case study in 2 national conferences, and in both cases, it was about a 50-50 split.
Really?
And yeah, and one of the trends, not really surprising, I noticed is I would say one of the biggest splits is across age. So generally the younger people in the audience or the younger companies made up of younger folks strongly in favor of going after this. And alternatively, the companies that are, I don't know if I want to say older, let's just say more experienced and more seasoned folks in the industry have been less excited about doing this type of work. In our own internally, we did this at Marcon just as a dry run about 2 years ago, and it was split in our company as well. and similar demographics, although a lot of the no's were around based on being government contractors and concern about government involvement and regulation and impacting our business. So a little bit of that. So maybe Daria, could you help us pick on some folks and maybe ask, they could talk about their decision and which levers they came up with?
Absolutely. Just to be clear, this isn't Scott's basement though, right? This picture?
Yeah.
Not at all. No.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't know if Margie can chime in, Margie Grubik or Bob Greenwald, on your comments on no bid. I think it'd be helpful. See if we get somebody to.
Dario and folks,
Bob?
I was leaning towards bidding, but ultimately, I didn't think that the project was worth the exposure and the controversy surrounding it. So I guess I'm probably one of the seasoned folks.
And Bob, what industry are you in? Could you share?
In the insurance business.
Insurance. Okay. Interesting. And would you say the exposure risk is your industry is viewed as more conservative that way?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So, and any lever in particular?
No, not in particular.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, my take was a no bid also. I took it as a little bit different, and it could go either way. It's cultural, right? Does this industry fit into your company culture? Now, they go on to say that they want a facility that symbolizes their company and source of pride. So obviously they take a lot of pride in their company, but you know, does it align with the culture of your organization? Obviously it's somewhat of a controversial topic, I guess, but
sure.
Sure. My answer.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jared. Anybody else we can pick on in the chat?
Margie, maybe Margie Grubik. Maybe not.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself.
Right.
So I'm one of the people probably that age matters. You know, to me, that's a pretty controversial, being a child of the 70s.
Sure.
Something that I don't know. I'm conservative, and it would be something I probably, if I was making a decision, would be concerned, because especially on the East Coast, it's not something that we're seeing that much of right now. You know, if we were in California, I might feel different.
Sure. And Margie, any thoughts on which of the levers were influential to you? You think?
Probably all of them. No.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I'd be concerned about everything. You know, profitability, my employees, everything. Yeah.
Great. Well, appreciate you sharing that.
Well, one point for context is, if I remember right, there's going to be some CBD oil processing plants opening up in Virginia, if they haven't already opened up. So to Margie's point, we're not as familiar with this in Virginia yet, but obviously surrounding states and the popularity is probably not the right word, but the legalization and the utilization of cannabis and cannabis derivatives is becoming more mainstream every day. So,
right.
Hey Dario, to that point, I live in DC, and my stepson's father actually is an ops manager at DC's largest grow house.
Oh, really?
Which is a stone's throw from where I live. And to your point, the medical market is heavily invested in this.
Absolutely.
So you know, while from you know, whether you lean liberal or conservative, there is a market demand, and it is expanding considerably, and there is a ton of money in it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there are, as part of kind of, you had mentioned competition, you know, trying to compete with the Colorados and the Washington states. It really is. Steve and I were talking about it the other day, of whether or not we wanted to keep this in here or replace it with a different case study. And, you know, certainly one of our goals and one of the reasons we chose to keep it in here was because of context and relevance.
Yeah, it makes
So we really appreciate the folks speaking up and just helping
Yeah.
dialogue today. So thank you.
What I want to do in the way of wrapping up is I just want to look at the levers real quick and see what the impacts could be on each one of them. So actually starting from maybe brand, how do you think if you were to bid on this work and win it, how impactful would that be on the brand? Personally, I think it would be very impactful. I think we heard some comments from our two audience members that this is real impactful and not always particularly positive. So in that case, brand would be a lever. Scott, any thoughts on brand?
Sorry, I missed that last part. I heard
So-
you, but you faded off a little bit.
Yeah, so I was just any other thoughts on brand impacting if you were to win this work?
Yeah, no, I think I think in terms of kind of the values of the company and where you align yourself, whether you are risk averse or not, or if it really is about expanding portfolio,
Yep.
you're trying to diversify. I think then you're trying to balance a growth opportunity versus sticking to your guns and saying, no, this is the company we are, this is what we stand
Right.
for, and it doesn't matter if it's the next Apple. That's what we choose.
Sure. Lumping the kind of the financial ones into one. So thinking about profit, labor rate, benefits, my sense was in the case that they're willing to pay pretty good dollar. They're not looking for low rate. They're not looking for people at the bottom of the pay scale. They're looking to pay. So if you manage it right, it could be quite profitable. The labor rate's going to be relatively high. Benefits could be real good. So Scott, any thoughts on the financial pieces here?
I think in terms of the fact that they want to elevate their level of client delivery and project success, that they recognize that in order to get the results they're looking for, they're willing to pay for it. I think that makes a significant difference, which is not always the case. A lot of contracts are out there where it's low bid, and once you get hired, then you find yourself in a position where the client may change the rules.
All right. And final comment, talk about culture. I think we've all heard the cliche that culture eats strategy for lunch. If this project doesn't fit in the culture of your firm, and we heard a comment about that, then it's not going to work. So from a strategic perspective, you have to no bid. And we see that it was predominantly no bid in this group. So that's pretty much a wrap. We open it up to any last questions or comments. Really, really appreciate your participation today, and we really had some fun. So Dario, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, and thank you. I think it was really interesting. And just for clarification, was this an opportunity that Marcon had, or is this just purely?
No, purely my imagination.
And what would you think Marcon would do with this opportunity?
I can tell you right now, Marcon would no bid.
Yeah.
And primarily based on we heard a comment about risk, but certainly brand would be probably one of the bigger influencers, and the fact that we are 95+% a government contractor, we would view that as a risk and not helpful to us expanding our government business.
Right. No, good point. Well, I really appreciate you both gentlemen going over this. Clearly, you got a good handle on this content and really put it in a way that was easy to digest and usable for any industry. So I thought it was really, really helpful. I'll make sure, I think you guys will send us the presentation and we'll distribute it to the group. Would that be okay?
Of course. Yeah.
We'll make sure to get this out to the group. And then I would also invite you guys back at some point, maybe in the fall.
Sure.
Maybe at Ruth Chris. Steve, I can buy you that steak, where we can meet in a room, arm to arm there kind of thing. So hopefully
I'll take a rain check there. I like that. Scott, if you go to the last slide, it's got our contact info.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't forget this
Sure.
page. The objective of sharing this with everyone was, kind of recognizing that this brief exercise is, a blip compared to what you do with you and your companies after this. And so if through anything that you heard today or the discussions that we had, if it piques your interest to have conversations with the folks in your company about what the strategy is or where you're going, we figured here were a handful of questions that you could go to your senior leadership, or if you're the senior leadership, maybe things that you want to ask the folks in your company to help, kind of move you in the direction where you guys want to go. So again, thank you.
I'd also love to hear if anybody takes the levers and adjusts them and use them in your organization. We'd love to hear back from you. That'd be amazing to hear. So thank you.
Great. Well, I appreciate you guys presenting today and all the attendees. We'll make sure to get the presentation distributed. Here's the contact information. Feel free to reach out to Scott or Steve on any follow-up. I'm guessing on those couple points that you pointed out, Scott, your team there can help an organization kind of chase those down and vet them out a bit and build something out there.
Yeah, we actually, we run a program called LDPX, which is the Leadership Development Program Exchange. And the intent there is to bring a mix of industry together to begin to figure out how to lead yourself, your teams, and strategy. And strategy is a major component to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. And we're also on LinkedIn. We have a pretty fantastic website. It's got a lot of different content and information there as well. So looking forward to hearing from you all, and hope you all stay cool and hydrated and safe. And thanks again.
Everyone be well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. That's going to conclude our presentation for today. I hope everyone has a great weekend. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dario.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.